Welcome everyone. My name is Margaret Corrigan. I'm the current Vice President of VicTESOL. Thank you for joining us for this professional learning event, the title of which is Teaching Pronunciation, It's Never Too Early, with our guest presenter, Jacky Springall. I'd like to begin this afternoon by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which I am joining you from today, the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. I'd like to pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and extend this acknowledgement to traditional owners and elders of the country on which you are joining this webinar today. So just a couple of comments on the technical setup. If you could please keep your microphone on mute during the presentation. You can use the chat function to post questions along the way, questions about the presentation or about any technical difficulties you may have. You may also wish to email victesol@victesol.vic.edu.au if you've got any inquiries or assistance that you might need during the event. As I mentioned, questions for Jacky, please ask them throughout the session, and we have allocated some time towards the end of the session or midway through to respond to those questions. So we'll start with Jacky's presentation. We'll then have some time for Q&A, and then there's going to be a breakout room activity and discussion time, and then we'll come back together at the end. So it's my pleasure to introduce Jacky Springall, who has spent most of her EAL career working with new adult migrants and refugees in the AMEP. So her work has included classroom teaching, curriculum and professional development roles, and coordination and delivery of programs. One of her enduring interests has been the integration of pronunciation teaching in everyday EAL programs and its significance for the acquisition of oral language skills. Jacky's been involved in many collaborations, one of which was working with Dr. Linda Yates on teaching pronunciation when we had the wonderful AMEP Research Centre. Sadly, those days have gone. But there are, that work continues with the teaching pronunciation fact sheets, which are still available and are still a fantastic resource. She also developed a professional development kit for assessing intelligibility. Jacky's currently working for Box Hill Institute, coordinating the AMEP and C programs. She's based in Lilydale and Ringwood. And Jacky was one of the presenters we had on the program for the VicTESOL Adult Sector PD Day, which we had scheduled, seems like years ago, for March in 2020, but we had to reschedule it obviously due to COVID. So thank you so much, Jacky, for making the pivot to do an online PD for us. So welcome, Jacky, and over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. I'm just going to stop sharing this for a minute, just so I can't really see you, but you can see me. Margaret, does that sound okay?
Yes. Can I just suggest there's one thing I didn't do. If you will get a better clarity of presentation if you just click in the top right corner of your screen and put yourself on speaker view. You'll just sort of see Jacky on the screen, and rather than having so much, we've got a lot of participants, so there's a lot of action. So I suggest you go on to speaker view. Thank you. Thanks, that should be good. That sounds perfect, Jacky. Off you go.
Okay, thanks. So thank you. So thanks everybody for coming along today. As Margaret said, this was originally going to be in March and face to face, and so much has happened since March. Initially, I was hoping this was going to be quite an experiential sort of session with you doing quite a lot of things. I haven't given up on that idea, so I am still hoping we can build in a bit of activity in this session. So there will be, whilst you're going to be on mute for most of this, there will be a couple of times when I'm going to ask people to unmute and also use that chat room function. Teaching pronunciation is one of the areas of teaching English that I think most teachers are really interested in, myself included. And it's not really surprising because obviously it's such a key part of people being able to communicate in what's primarily an English-speaking country. But despite our interest in it, I feel that often we don't give it as much thought in our planning as perhaps we do with some other aspects of language, you know, like grammar or genres or things like that. So, yeah, so we, as you came into the room, we had a bit of a poll just to quickly see how you would place yourself in terms of teaching pronunciation. I know it's not an either or, so I'm going to share my screen, and in a second I'll get David and Carly, who I want to thank, who are working in the background with all the technical side here to share the results of that. So I'm just going to share my screen with you again. Bear with me for 1 second. Okay, so hopefully you can all see the screen. Someone tell me if you can't. So there's I'm just trying to, my screen's frozen at the moment. David, trying to move on to the next slide.
Yeah, okay, so just left click on the screen and then press space bar. I think that should unfreeze it.
Click on the screen, press the space bar. All right, just
or
hang on a second.
Or you can stop sharing and reshare it if that doesn't work.
Okay, that's looking like it might have worked. Okay. All right, has that worked okay?
That's worked fine. I can see that really well. Yep.
So there was two things. I guess this is really for people to think about. What do you think describes you best? And I know they're not necessarily an either or. Do you think you're someone who teaches pronunciation fairly incidentally, like if and when the need arises, or you've got a plan for pronunciation activities to deliver across the term? So let's just have a look, maybe David, if we can, at what people have said here.
So I've just shared the results. They should be on your screen now.
Okay, great. Okay, and yeah, I think that would probably fit in with what I would think what is the case for most of us, really. I'd like to say it's not me, but I think it probably is the case. So probably mainly it's around, you know, incidentally, if and when it's needed. I guess one of my aims for this session is to encourage people to perhaps, think about setting some goals for for building in pronunciation teaching in their programs, a bit more just than the incidental side of things. So basically, the plan for this session is, I guess, a quick look at, you know, what we're trying to do when we're, what's the aim of teaching pronunciation, looking at the different aspects that come under that umbrella for teaching, having a look at some of the teaching goals that we could put into our programs, and then looking at some practical activities and ideas that we can do to reach those goals. And then, as Mark said, we've got some time for some questions to share people's ideas, what they're doing, and some discussion. So first up, what are we trying to do when we're teaching pronunciation? Perhaps if you could think of a word or a couple of words and pop in the chat function. You know, what do you see the overall aim is when we're teaching pronunciation? So if people just pop something in the chat there, one word, few words. I'm having difficulty seeing my chat here, so I might have to ask Marg or David or to.
So we've got lots of comments there. Confidence to be understood, to say the word correctly, to connect spelling, sounds to spelling, intelligibility, confidence, communicates clearly, be understood, clear communication, yeah, all of the above.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, thanks. I mean, gone are the days where, you know, the rain in Spain fell mainly on the plane. We're not trying to get people necessarily talking like us, and we are looking. I think probably intelligibility is one of the key aims. So intelligibility, now that was one I prepared before, so I was hoping someone was going to say that, so I'm glad a few of you did. So I think the main thing we're aiming for is that our learners can be understood. And I'm using a definition here of intelligibility that I think Linda Yates coined, and that intelligibility is a bit of a product of both what we understand, but also how hard we had to work to understand that. So maybe we can understand someone, but maybe we have to really strain and really listen, you know, really listen hard. So it's also, you know, it's not just about what we understand. It's got speaker factors, you know, so from the speaker, it's about their sounds, the stress, the rhythm, intonation, and then delivery in terms of, you know, how many pauses or hesitations. And then, but it's also got listener factors or hearer factors. So it's not just about the speaker. And that might be about the experience or the expertise of that person in understanding different accents or understanding the different ways people speak. It can be to do with attitude, how much someone wants to understand the other person, how patient they are. And it can be about context, you know, about the knowledge of the topic. So I think it's important when we're thinking about teaching pronunciation, we're not just teaching speaking. You know, we're also, a lot of pronunciation teaching is about listening, you know, teaching people how to make sense of what they hear. Now, I hope everybody's got a pen, or on the chat function, I'm just going to play a tiny bit of audio here. And can you write down, just write down what you hear. So I hope a few people will write this in the chat function. Don't overthink this, just have a listen. This is actually a little bit of audio that was made on one of the intelligibility research projects, actually, with a student who's looking at a photograph and describing what she sees in the photograph. So let's... Sorry. I can get my... It's coming, I promise you. There you go.
This is Parna. Yeah? This Parna is married? Celebration? Yeah? Maybe birthday or maybe anniversary on...
Okay. Now, for some reason, everybody, I can't see my chat function, so I'm going to have to ask.
Jacky,
yes.
if you just move your cursor to the top of your screen, you should get a drop down.
Yeah, I did get a drop down, and I'm clicking on chat, David, and nothing's happening.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Okay, maybe Margaret can tell you what's in there.
Escape, make your screen smaller, you know, just escape.
So we've got a few. This is Panda. This Panda married. This is Panna. This is married. This is partner. This partner is married. Celebration, maybe birthday or anniversary, maybe birthday. This is fauna.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So we can probably see from that that in fact it is hearer factors as well as speaker factors, but we can see there's a lot of things going on. In fact, I had somebody listen to that who thought this is a banana, this banana is married. It was this is partner, is what she's trying to say. Yeah. So, but if we look at, you know, what's going on there, now, I'm just gonna share my screen again because it's doing a kind of weird things here for me. Okay, all right. Can I just check everybody can see the screen? Yeah. So if we, yes, so we can see we've just had a little bit there. There's various things going on and probably cover a few of these different aspects of pronunciation. So, you know, some of the sounds, particularly some of the vowel sounds and consonants were mispronounced. The stress, anniversary, you know, and of course, once you get the stress wrong, then the rhythm and intonations wrong. We've got phrasing and sort of chunking where the pause groups are, so it's very hesitant. And then, yeah, obviously in this bit of speech, we haven't heard things that occur in fast natural speech. But we're going to have a look at some of those things, and I'm going to focus this session more on stress and syllable stress and word stress and rhythm and intonation. Not because those other things aren't important, but partly because we've got limited time. But I think from a teaching perspective, where you get probably some of the biggest bang for your buck is on stress and syllable stress in terms of both teachability and in terms of making an impact on students' intelligibility. So now, can I just check, Margaret, David, can everybody see enough of me, or do I need to stop sharing my screen? So I just want to show a couple of the things that I might use.
You're looking fabulous, Jackie.
Oh, excellent. Very good. Okay. Okay. So I'm just going to show you a few things in my general kit here. So one here, I've got a, you know, squashy thing that I can throw around in a circle that's not going to take somebody's eye out. We'll have a look at some of these things in a minute. Some elastic bands, some rhythm sticks, some laminated stress cards, and we'll have a look at some of these things. Lots of lamination going on. Whilst we're not going to talk about sounds in this session very much, I would normally give students some sort of phonemic chart that they can put into their folders. This one's the one from AIMS, the sound spelling, and it's got consonants on one side and vowels on the other, but it also has the spelling choices that go along with all of those sounds. And I have a dice, which we shall have a look at. We shall have a look at in a minute. Okay, so before we just look at some of those activities, let's have a look at some of the key things. And I think it's really useful for speakers of English to know and be able to do with pronunciation, and things that we shouldn't assume that they know. So firstly, we use a lot of breath to make a lot of sounds in English. You know, there's a lot of voiceless consonants where we only use breath, so we're not using any voice. Words have syllables and different stress patterns, and in some other languages you don't have, you know, they might have equal stress on them, or they don't have the same sorts of stress patterns as English in many others, so students have got to learn that. Phrases have stress patterns too, and it's the weak and strong stresses of words that give English its rhythm. We can change the whole meaning of something we say by shifting the stress, and we'll have a look at an activity for that in this session. We use pausing in spoken text that correspond to chunks of meaning. So, you know, so our punctuations of commas and full stops corresponds with our pausing in our spoken text. This is, of course, what causes some of our learners' problems. Words aren't like bricks in the wall, but they're like links in a chain. Okay, so whereas when students are reading, they can see each individual word. When we start talking, then obviously a lot of those sounds merge. And again, another problem for speakers, learners of English, the faster we speak, the shorter words can become. We use tone to convey emotion and meaning, so we can totally change the meaning of what we say more than what the words are saying by the actual tone. And we'll have a look at a couple of activities for that. And then there's a whole meta language of pronunciation, which I would encourage people to start teaching your students right from the get-go. So syllables, stress, breath, strong pausing, rhythm, voice. These are all words the students can learn, and we teach them words like noun and preposition. So these are words that we could start doing, right from the beginning. So I think all of those things are things that can be goals in our plan for teaching. So let's have a look at syllables. So we know all words in English with 2 or more syllables have got 1 syllable with stronger stress. So if you have a look at those examples there, window, engineer, intelligent. So the students also need to know how do we make a stressed syllable stressed? What is it that we do to do that? Okay. So to make a syllable stressed, it's usually a bit louder, and I find that that's the bit the students often get first, the louder bit. We have a full clear vowel, which is usually longer and maybe a little bit of a different pitch. But then we also need to, know about unstressed syllables where the vowel is usually shortened. So it might be a schwa. So in the very first lesson that I would have with students in a class, whether it's a prelim class or a high-level class, I would often start with just learning students' names. This is my squishy ball, would come into it, throwing the ball around, and if it's a beginning class, it might just be, hi, my name's Jacky. And we'd all do that, throw the ball around, and then, throw it around and say, hi Tuan. If it's a high level class, it might be, hi, I'm Jacky, I live in Healesville, I came by car. So after we've done that, I'm just writing this on a bit of paper here for you. I might then get a bit of paper, write down my name, okay, and the syllables. So Jacky. So immediately we've introduced syllables and stress. So one of the things I think when and you will all have your own ways of doing this, is to work out how you're going to denote syllables. I tend to use squashy circles, and I quite like them because they stand alone. So there's many different ways with little dashes and things, but I think whichever way you do it, it's probably important to, if you've got a co-teacher, make sure you're doing the same way, and ideally in a centre it's quite good, so when students change classes. The advantage of doing this right at the beginning of a class with students' names is that you immediately introduce syllables and stress, but you also can learn students' names very quickly by doing it. And often I found myself mispronouncing someone's name for the whole term, and only to discover that in week 6 or something I've been saying it wrong. Of course, if you do this with students, because their names aren't English names, there may be a syllable which has equal stress. So tum tum, for example, Burmese name. So they're not necessarily going to have one syllable that's stronger than another. So if I was doing this with a group of students, after we'd done that in our circle, then I'd have the students go into different points of the room. All the one-syllable names in that corner, the two-syllable names in another corner, the three-syllable names. And then they can subdivide the ones where it's stronger on the first syllable and weaker on the second. And after that, in fact, we can pin these all up. If you're lucky enough to have a classroom that you can stay in the room, pin these all up on the wall in their different groups, and you've got, you know, it's a really good way for the students to learn their names. With suburbs, I think it's always good to assume here. So I'm Jackie and I live in Healesville. Okay, so you'll find students in level 3 who still, you know, might have quite good English, but won't be able to say effectively their suburb name. So it's really good, I think, to spend some time on things like suburbs. If people have got to, you know, ring up, call an ambulance, call a taxi, call Uber Eats, it's great to be able to be understood, to you know, just to be able to say that. These are pronunciation word banks, and this is something that can be quite good for any level class. Say you're doing a theme or a topic, you have a brainstorm of all the words that might be they might come across in the theme, and then they can group them not in an alphabetical order, but in terms of stress patterns. I've got little sets of stress cards, laminated stress cards, where you know enough for you know, each table of students or groups of students, and these can be used with any vocab that you're doing, you know, for any topic. Okay. Now, so that's looking at syllable stress. Let's have a look at stress in words and rhythm. So I'm going to ask people here to unmute themselves. All right, we'll see how we go. It might be chaos, but I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself. Okay, how are we going? All right. Okay, so got my rhythm 6 here. So basically, follow my lead. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4. Everybody? 1, 2, 3, 4. I think we have a little bit of delay, so okay. Let's see how this goes. Da 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 da. Everybody?
Da 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 da.
Okay. This is the house that Jack built.
This is the house that Jack built.
Da 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 da. These are the houses that Jacqueline built.
These are the houses that Jack built.
Da 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 da. How can I possibly fit this all in?
How can I possibly fit this all in?
Right. Okay, pretty good given all that. You maybe just pop yourself on mute again. Okay, so what's going on here? All right, so we've used 1, 2, 3, 4, but then we put in, then this is the house that Jack built. These are the houses that Jacqueline bought. How can we possibly fit this all in? Okay, so what's happening here? We're managing to fit more in that rhythm. We're keeping the same rhythm and we're fitting more in. So if you could tell me, hopefully you would tell me, we're squeezing in certain words. So not everything's going at the same speed, and we're shortening some words. So the little grammar words, which the not so important ones, are getting squeezed, and we're reducing those. It's quite, you can make this a little bit more concrete if you want to in your classroom by stepping it out. So on every beat, you're doing a step, and so students can get that rhythm as they go. Okay, we'll just try something else. I'm just going to keep my eye on my time here. So we'll try a little bit of stress dictation here. So for this activity, I've got sets of some phrases, and again, that could be at any level of the students, so your beginner class or your higher level class. So they're sentences they've already been doing. These ones tend to be mainly around sort of personal ID, and then there's stress patterns. So I've just showing you on the screen the stress patterns, but what I would normally do is give each group of students a set of these laminated cards, and they'd work in groups to do this. Then I'd say put all the text ones to one side. So sort them out, put all the text to one side, so they're left just with the stress patterns. Right. I'm going to give you a dictation. We won't do them all because I think we're going to run out of time, but I'm going to read out some, and you can choose the pattern from A, B, C, D, F, or G. So let's have a go at this. Okay, listen. So, number one. When did you come to Australia? Da 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 da. When did you come to Australia? Da 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 da.
B.
B, someone's called out B. Beautiful. B, yes, beautiful. Thank you, whoever called that out. Okay. 2 months ago. 2 months ago. 2 months ago. Da 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 da. Da 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 da.
F. C.
Yes, F. Yes, well, hopefully I said it F. Yeah. Okay. Where do you live? Where do you live? Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Where do you live?
D.
D. Yes, good. In Ringwood. In Ringwood. Da da da. Da da da.
C.
C.
C. Yes, C. Okay. Do you have any children? Da 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 da. Da 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 da.
K.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay. Okay, beautiful. Now I'm not going to finish this because I'm conscious of the time that we had. So with students, so they can be quite good at this. So first of all, they would order all of these, all of the stress patterns. I'd read them out again, and then they would match it to then they have a look at the text, and they would match it. Okay, so they're here. We might read it again with a bit of repetition, and then they can do some pair work on that. So take it in turns to read that out. But as I said, you can do any sentences. So these will be these texts that you would do. To make this whole thing a little bit more concrete. Okay. So maybe I've got a sentence here. Would you like a cup of coffee? So just one word on each sentence, one word on each page, and call out a group of students, give them each a word, and then the students have got to sort out with themselves, how they stand in a line. Let's just, okay. So would you like a cup of coffee? They can all work out where they are, get the rest of the class to look at it, and then they can, tell each other they're wrong and carry on. And then we would practice that sentence with the rhythm. Would you like a cup of coffee? Da 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 da. Would you like a cup of coffee? Da 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 da. Can ask students who's strong, who thinks they're stressed, which is the stressed one, and the ones who think they're stressed can take a step forward. What's good here is they can actually see that it's not just The words that aren't stressed are going to be the little grammar words. They're the not so important words in the sentence. So another thing you can do is say, if you think you're not needed in this sentence, you can go and sit down. And can we still understand? Can we still understand what we're saying? Or even, who thinks they're the most important word in the sentence? So, would you like a cup of coffee? Da 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 da. And maybe, you know, coffee thinks they're most important, or maybe like thinks they're most important. So let's try that. We'll just say like. Does that work? No. But if we say coffee, it works. So it can illustrate that. This is a picture. I asked one of the teachers. We haven't got classes on site at the moment in Melbourne. So I asked one of the teachers who's teaching out at one of the wholesale nurseries on a project for us, and I asked her to do this activity so I could take a couple of pictures for this session. This is actually a group of Burmese nursery workers, and they were doing some OH&S work. So their sentence was, "Get out of the building as quickly as possible." Da, 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 da. And we might just have a quick look at them sorting this out together.
Lên. Yes, yeah.
Okay. You've probably seen enough of that. When you're doing this sort of activity, as I said, you can ask them who's strong. You could do some back chaining with this, and I'm not quite sure what happens in your brain, but back chaining, as a lot of you will know, is when you start at the back of the sentence. So instead of "would you like a cup of coffee," you can start with "coffee." Like a coffee. Would you like a coffee? Or and move forward with move to the front of it. If you've done some work on linking, you can get the students predict who do they think is linked. You know, is it if you've got a word that's a vowel, starts with a vowel sound, after a word that ends with a consonant, they'll be linked. So pre-COVID, I used to get students, just thinking of with some gender consideration, used to get students who thought they were linked to link arms. Doing this last week, the students tried to stay at 1.5 metres to do that. If you have a little set of schwas and you've done some work on the unstressed vowel sound, you can give some other students sitting there some schwas and say, you know, where are the schwas? You know, where's the unstressed syllables? And they can go and you know, identify. You know, would you like a cup of coffee? Cuppa, yeah, like a. You can. This is really more about grammar than pronunciation, but I think the best pronunciation activities are the ones that work on different levels. You can do some substitution in there. So give another student who's watching a word, tea, and tell them to go and stand in the sentence and get rid of the person that they're replacing. So they've got to identify that. So knock off coffee and put in tea, or she, knock off she and put that. So, you know, so they can see how they can, you know, change that sentence around. The other one that's useful for you, just in terms of rhythm and linking, is getting students to breathe in, take an in-breath, and do the whole phrase on their out-breath. Particularly good for students who have that very, you know, staccato kind of speech. So take a deep breath in, and then, would you like a cup of coffee? All on the out-breath, and that will help with the linking. Okay. We'll just have a quick look at this. Have a look at this sentence here. So I never said you stole the money. But I also could say, I never said you stole the money. 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 So I can totally change the meaning of that sentence with where I put the stress, the focus stress. Now, I wouldn't probably do this one with my lower level learners, but with higher level learners. So let's have a look at this question here. Were you in the bank on Thursday? Yes, I was. Okay, let's have a look if we put the focus stress in this sentence on a different word. Okay, were you in the bank on Thursday? 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 Okay, so this can be a pair activity where one student has got the sentences on the left with the word to stress bold, and this other student will have some potential responses. So let's have a look at number 2. Anyone want to just maybe unmute themselves and say what they think the best response were? Were you in the bank on Thursday?
D.
D. No, my brother was. And number 3, were you in the bank on Thursday?
E.
E, yeah, no, I was outside. Number 4, were you in the bank on Thursday?
C. C. No.
No, I was in the post office, yeah. Were you in the bank on Thursday?
No, on Friday.
On Friday.
No, on Friday. Okay. So just looking at the subtleties of the language, we've got very different things here, but it's also helping students if they're really having to exaggerate, you know, what they're saying to do that. Okay. So there's a lot of things that happen when we talk quickly, and I guess in this session I want to encourage people to not to consider that all students, no matter whether they're beginner or high level, need to have some opportunity to hear a more normal paced speech, so that when we talk normally and naturally, sounds disappear. You know, I don't know, Jack and Jill, she wants some butter. Sounds can change. Would you, would you, do you, do you, do you? And vowels shorten. Cup of tea, a lot of money. Okay, so these are things that students are going to be hearing outside of the classroom. So it's not that we're necessarily trying to get them to talk like this, it's to be able to understand. So so even at that low level, if you take some of the phrases that you would be doing, like would you have a cup of tea, and do them at a normal pace. And one of the things with that activity where everybody was standing there, try doing it faster and faster and faster, and those students quite like it. It's a lot of fun, and see how quickly they can get it out. So to slow something down, we're better to make longer pauses, you know, where the natural pause groups would be, where you naturally have a comma or you'd have a full stop. Make that a longer pause. So each chunk is more at normal speed, and increase the length of the pause. And then students have a little bit more processing time, but then they're also hearing words that are, you know, coming out at the what they will normally hear at normal speed. Okay. All right. So let's have a bit of a look at tone. I don't know how many people here have well, I have a delightful 30-year-old daughter now, but when she was 14, she was not so delightful. And she could make a sentence like, thank you very much, sound like an absolute insult. So in fact, the tone of what we say can actually carry a lot more meaning even than the words. So, you know, thank you very much, if it sounds like thank you very much, is, you know, is the strength is in the tone. So even again with lower level students, I think it's quite good to try, because tone is I think very cultural and different in a lot of different languages, to try and look at the appropriate tone when we might say something, you know. So if it's thank you for the lovely present, it's probably not so meaningful if someone says thank you for the lovely present. I'm going to just hold up my very amateur looking dice here. Can everybody see that okay? So this is a dice which on each side has got an adjective. And the adjectives could be whatever's appropriate for your level. Could be very simple, happy, sad, bored, or whatever. And then, you know, you can be, again, if you're doing any particular topic, or you're a dialogue or something, or choose a phrase, roll the dice. Okay, and this one I last used actually for a customer service course, so it's got things like friendly and unfriendly on it. But and the student then, well, in fact, it's quite good to get a group of students to try and say it in that tone, to convey that tone. So if you're working customer service and you say saying, "Can I help you?" or "Can I help you?" it's very different to saying, "Can I help you?" So, getting students to practice those different tones. We're going to do another activity in the breakout rooms where I'm going to ask you to practice in your breakout room this sentence, and you're going to select an adjective. There'll be a few more here. And then we'll have a few volunteers come back to the main group, and we'll see if we can identify how you're feeling. So the activity that you could do is have little bits of paper with pairs of adjectives or groups of adjectives. Give them out to the students so they get, surprised or angry or relieved or happy. A sentence that you write on the board, and then the students walk around the room and they have to find their partner who feels the same way as them. Not by looking at the piece of paper. So as you normally have to do with students, you have to make sure they don't show the bit of paper. They've got to identify how they feel about this by their tone. When they find their partner or partners, then that little group can then say that sentence to the rest of the group and see if the group can pick how they're feeling. It's quite a lot of fun. The students enjoy it, and it means when you're doing anything with dialogues and things like that, you're surprised, or you're happy, or friendly. Okay, so it is almost time for me to shut up. So so let's just have a little bit of a summary here of some of the things we can do to assist learners. So we haven't talked very much about this, but I think it is important to have some understanding of the individual pronunciation needs of your learners and learner groups. Of course, you've probably got a mixed class and they're going to be different, but if you've got you'll find, and I'm sure everybody will know this, particular learner groups will have particular challenges. So, your Vietnamese learners will probably have difficulties with final consonants. The stress patterns will be very different for a lot of different groups. The Chinese students will often try and put a schwa in the middle of a blend of consonants, so you get an extra little sound in there. So it's quite useful when you're deciding what to prioritise and what to focus on, is to, if you've got a large number of a particular group of students in there, to do a little bit of research on what some of their language background is, and some of the particular issues they have with pronunciation. Develop the shared language to talk about pronunciation. So don't be shy to teach all those words which enable us to talk about pronunciation, like syllables and stress and breath and rhythm, linking where it's linked. Correct important errors. So obviously we're not always trying to correct errors depending on what sorts of activities you're doing, but important errors can be the ones that really are impeding, can cause misunderstandings or miscommunication, or it might be in key words for certain people, like somebody's job, where the key words that are important for their job, and So they'll need to be able to say those words if they're in the workplace or going for an interview. As we teach new words and phrases, we need to teach the stress pattern with them. So just with every new word, the students understand what that stress pattern will be. Make sure that our students get some time at speed to listen to and practice natural speech, so that we don't slow everything down all the time, that we give them chance to hear some things at something that approximate normal speed, so we can make those bits small chunks, something familiar, and as I said, increase the pause groups. And songs and things are really good for that as well. Integrate pronunciation into our teaching. So, we do it incidentally as a need arises, but work our way through some of those other things. These are some resources that I think are quite useful for teaching pronunciation. Give it a go. Is Linda Yates and Beth Zielinski, sort of based on quite a bit of research they did, but they've got a lot of practical ideas in there. Rhymes and Rhythms is an English one, so a lot of but it's got a lot of good sort of music, a little bit daggy, but quite good music. A lot of the place names are English ones, but you can substitute a lot of that. Clearly Speaking's an oldie, but a goodie. That's not so much a teaching, it's a PD resource, so it's got little videos of people doing a range of different activities in terms of teaching pronunciation. Learner English is a good one if you want to do a little bit of reading up about, it's not just about pronunciation, it's talk about grammar and other aspects of language, but it's a good one to see what are some of the common issues that learners from different groups, Iran or, China, in terms of what they might be, the things that you could commonly predict to help you plan. Sound spelling originally was the charts as I held up here, but there's also a workbook which is it's designed for literacy, but there's a lot of pronunciation activities in there that are useful for pronunciation. And for a set of good songs which are great in pronunciation, the Sing With Me books. I think the first ones were in 2013, but I think there's three different levels now. Okay, so I'm going to hand back over to Mark. Sorry, I never showed you my elastic band, actually, I realised, just with my elastic band, is here to just give, this is quite a good visual thing for showing people how to stretch out that vowel sound when you're trying to make a syllable stressed. I mean, you can do different things on the board in terms of writing the stressed syllable in big letters or longer, but for example, banana, banana. So just showing, just holding on to that stressed syllable and lengthening the vowel sound. So banana. So yeah, so a bit of exaggeration is good. So I found them quite useful when you're trying to get students to elongate their vowel sounds to get that stressed syllable rather than just go loud. Okay, so I'm going to hand over to Marg now, who's going to get any questions or suggestions or ideas.
We've got some great questions, and please keep them coming. We're happy for you to field questions, or if you've got any ideas, please share those as well. The more of those, the merrier. So first one for you, Jacky.
All right, hang on. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here for a minute.
Yeah, sure. What's the best way to help learners who drop the last syllable of words? So we've got an example, Burmese students of other Asian language backgrounds in particular.
Yeah, I think, look, I don't know what the best way is, but one of the ways I would do it, and you've probably got things to say here, Marg, because I know you've done a lot of words on sounds. I think that the notion where you do back chaining in a sentence, sort of back training where you start with the final sound and then go backwards can be useful too. So if you start with the final phoneme, so I don't know, but say worked, start with worked, yeah, and then worked. So you get the final sound and go backwards. Or if they, if it's work and then I normally do some hand signals as well, so that they're missing, missing a sound. You, as I said, Marg, I know you've done quite a lot on the sound level in your work at Karen Butch. Do you want to comment on that?
I think is a really useful strategy for students who drop the last syllable. They feel quite empowered, I think, when you get them to practice using that method. It's sort of, it's almost a light bulb moment for them. It's hard, but it actually empowers them to go, okay, I can actually attack it from a different angle.
Yeah, it's a little bit like, sometimes it's not the final word, but I know because I'm working in the eastern suburbs now, and the Chinese students have a lot of trouble with the H at the start of Box Hill. And I remember, some of you might know Philip McIntyre. I remember Philip trying to, so they have trouble with that in that position, but he used to teach them sill, so it would be box sill. So they had trouble with saying the box, but then he'd link the final consonant to the next word. So box sill. So they could do sill. They couldn't do box, but they could do sill. So box sill. Yeah. So
Sort of a strengths-based approach almost.
Yes. Yeah.
There's another question sort of related. Some students, depending on their background, struggle to say some sounds within words. For example, the, word, the. What do you suggest?
Sorry, say it again. For example, what
was
the example?
If students struggling to say some sounds within words, so it could be a little bit like box, like the
yes.
Box. Like this person's, Monique has said the.
Yeah, so certain sounds, certain sound. So, well, yeah, and it's interesting because sometimes students have difficulties with a sound generally, no matter what position, and sometimes it just depends on the position that it is in the word. Again, you can practice that sound in isolation, and then you can practice that sound in the syllable that it's in, and then put on the other bit. Or, and sometimes it's a matter of working out the near enough, close enough strategy so it's intelligible, I think.
That's right, yeah. A question from Leslie Coccarelli, thanking you for the list of resources and noting in particular the resource Clearly Speaking. Jackie, do you know if it's possible to get the video for that?
Look, I suspect the answer might be no. I've got, I have video in my old PD resource, and I know a lot of those old Amy P Research Centre resources. There's a lot of fabulous resources, and often, the video, the video or the audio it's really tricky to get. I mean, all that Get Wise series, nothing to do with pronunciation. For example, all the audio for that seems to have disappeared. So no, the short answer is no, I don't, unless you have a good connection. I mean, as I said, I got that little bit of audio I played with the student before. It was part of the intelligibility stuff that we did, and Linda Yates dug it out of a computer somewhere. But it's a good question. The trouble is the department's changed and who owns that's all changed. So yeah, I don't know. Other than finding a colleague in a site who has it. And if it's out of print, then it's quite legal to copy it.
Thank you. A couple of questions around the resources. VicTESOL will be posting some of the resources. Lemerck, thank you, Jenny Peck, for mentioning that Lemerck has some of the resources. You can Google AMEP Research Centre and you can get some of those resources there.
Yeah, I can actually see the chat here, and I think Maria, thank you. You're talking about cued articulation with hand cues to help students notice when it sounds reduced. So that's another thing that you can, can use when they're missing missing something. Also, if you do have phonemes sort of stuck up on the wall there, or they have a particular, you know the students have an issue with a particular sound, with that student, you can kind of, when they say something, you kind of can sort of, show that and highlight that. It's, students obviously, for anything to do with pronunciation, they need to be able to hear what's happening first before they can do it. So they need to know that it's different. They need, so it's one thing knowing it, and then the next thing is being able to produce it, I think.
We've got, cued articulation. Oh, sorry, I'm just looking at here. I use the English videos on YouTube, English videos on YouTube, Sheila is suggesting.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff now on YouTube too that's quite good. Yeah.
And another interesting question from Monique, thank you. How have you adjusted to teaching pronunciation through Zoom and online?
I am probably not the best person to ask that to, because I have not been teaching that online. So I haven't been doing classroom teaching online. So probably some other people out there. I mean, Zoom, I think, I know our teachers do a lot of teaching on Zoom, and in our workbooks there's pronunciation activities where students are listening for syllable stress, for example, and then but they've they either have a model in their classes, or there's a audio model. I don't know if people know about Vockaroo, which is where you can record really easily something to insert into, if you were using workbooks and things like that. They only last for a few months, but if you're not worried about having it there forever, you can create a QR code quickly and put that in a worksheet, and the students can just hold their camera over it and listen to things. So you can do a lot of recording, but really easily on something like Vockaroo. So that works.
Margie Parsons has suggested you can use your mobile phone to record sentences.
Yes.
To take home for practice.
Yeah, so mobile phones, and as I said, and if you internet, yeah, so the similar sort of thing. So I think you can do that, and it depends if you have any face-to-face. But yeah, it is really good for them to be doing some of that listening practice. And
David's making a good point that we've got a session on online learning coming up with VicTESOL.
Yes.
We have well from Ames doing a session.
With Luke and Tanya, I think. Yeah, it should be good.
Frances has said that her Zedi students give words, pronounce words like one-syllable words like six and thanks. They pronounce them with 2 syllables. So they make 2 syllables out of a 1-syllable word.
Yeah. I think that's where it's really good to be doing stuff around how many syllables, and because they need to be able to hear they're doing it. So if they're saying things, either you're kind of using your sticks or you're clapping. And I know, I've had a lot of students make, the Chinese students will often, as I said, stick that extra syllable in there, that extra little schwa in there on a blend. So they'll make it maybe a 2-syllable word, a 3-syllable word, because I've split it up. So just to sort of try and make them aware how many syllables, or hand signals again. They get to the 2nd syllable, it's like stop.
Manjit has highlighted the resource which you have pointed out, Jackie. Give it a go, the teaching pronunciation resource, which is really an excellent one. I concur with that one. Jackie, could you just repeat quickly what you do with the QR code, please?
So if you just Google something called, this is Vockaroo for the QR code. You can do QR code. We've been using this quite a bit because we're making student workbooks, and then we'll often put some listening activities in there, as well as the reading, writing, which record it. On Vockaroo, you basically can go in there. It's so easy. You just do whatever you're doing, whether it's a dialogue or reading out something. You save it, and it generates a QR code. It generates a link. So you can put that link, give students that link. But if you, for example, if you're sending it to them in a workbook, not online, obviously the link, often they're really long, but it generates a QR code. You copy it and you just paste it on the workbook. So so they can either click on the link if they've got it online, or type in the link, or just if you hover your camera, like probably everybody's getting used to doing now as you're going in a cafe, hover it over the QR code. It will take you to that. It will take you to that record, to that recording.
Jacky, the spelling of Vocaroo, could you just confirm?
Yeah, I should be able to type it in here. Vocaroo.
Yeah. Thank you. Angela has done that for us.
Oh, sorry, that went in privately. So, somebody else has done it. Sorry, I just sent that to Carly. Sorry, Carly, you just got that.
Yeah, that's okay. It's there for everybody. Thanks, Ange. That's great. Okay, now we'll be going into breakout rooms soon, and hopefully you might take that opportunity to perhaps share some of the ideas that you have with others in your group. I'm sure people have a lot of ideas. You might be a bit shy about sharing them in the main group. We've also got Sing With Me as listed there. Jazz chants. Jacky, would you like to talk about jazz chants?
Yeah, I mean, jazz chants have been around for a very long time, but I think they're great, I actually don't think we've got a copy of them ourselves. I don't know. Yeah, so I think anything, I think music is really good because it gives you the rhythm there, and so unless it's like a Bob Dylan piece where he's got very strange syllable stressing and things like that, it gives a rhythm, and then I think there's a whole other part of the brain, and so I think putting anything in a chant or in music makes things much more memorable and helps students get those things out with the right rhythm and stress. So jazz chants, I think are great. I don't know if it's if there's any newer jazz chants than the ones what was it, Caroline Graham, I think, was it? Jazz chants. I don't know if that's but Sing With Me, which is the urban, which I had written down there. It's the Urban Lyrebirds one. They're terrific as well, because apart from the songs, which are written for EAL learners really around the themes and topics, they've got some grammar work in there. They've got some pronunciation exercises built in there. But again, with the song, it's built in the rhythm. So you've got the rhythm of English built in there. So, I think they're great resources, and students enjoy, they're fun. Yeah, and we all know, I think when we've learnt songs, we can probably all sing, I don't know, Frere Jacques and various things that, you can come out, you can remember a lot more things when it's in in music and in a song. I mean, I don't know if there's anybody there who's good on brains in the group, but obviously the processing of that is quite different.
Jacky, just one last question. What are your thoughts on teaching the phonemic symbols?
Okay, well, let me confess, I am really bad at remembering them. And it always used to freak me out totally, because especially if you work with a group of Chinese learners, often they knew them, and you'd start to do something with phonemic symbols and then they're scribbling down, teacher, is this right? And I'd have to remember. I think if it's something that they know and it's a resource for them, that's great. I've done a lot of teaching very low-level pre-literate learners, and so I've worried about confusing them too much with doing it. I think it's a really useful tool. I wouldn't necessarily teach them feel like I've got to spend hours doing that. The way I've approached it, particularly with beginner classes, as I've said, is to give students some sort of chart, like this, and then do things like have each week focus on some different sounds. There might be consonants, they might be vowels. I mean, there's certain sounds that probably don't cause as much difficulty. So it's good, rather than necessarily going through every single sound, think about what are the ones that are causing your learners the most obvious difficulty. I mean, the sound is often one that causes difficulty. The final S is often a problem. So think about the ones, and the vowel sounds. I think we tend to ignore vowel sounds a bit, but the vowels are often, particularly a stressed vowel, which are longer, the vowel sounds, it's good to teach them. And then what I have done with low-level groups, as we focused on a sound and then done all sorts of activities with that sound, brainstorms of words starting with that sound, in groups or something, and then double points if you've got the sound at the beginning and the sound at the end, or how many times you've got it in there. Colour them in on the chart, as you go through. So you're sort of gradually working through sound. So you might be building up vocabulary and you're building up, sound. It's quite good, I think, too, if you combine it with vocabulary, because some students won't have trouble with sounds, or like anything in pronunciation. But but if you're combining it with some other activity with that sound, then I think it's a useful thing to do. So I guess the short answer is I think it's useful. I don't think you need to stress if it's not something that you're familiar with, and work through it with students. It's really useful, I think, for students to know about the schwa sound, the little because it's the most common sound in our speech. So it's useful for them to, and it's useful to be able to say that to students too, and for them to know that any of the vowels can become a schwa, in an unstressed syllable.
Thank you. Now, we've got a few more comments and questions coming through, but I think it might be time for us to do our breakout room activity. Jackie, did you want to give a direction on that, or do you want me just to do that?
I think there's a couple of questions that I think is in there which are probably self-explanatory, but I'm just asking people in there, there's two questions to talk about, and obviously the useful thing is obviously discussing other people's ideas and suggestions in this opportunity to do that. But I have also asked each group to select one of the adjectives that you're going to have in your breakout room, whether it's happy, sad, anxious, and just say the sentence that's in there, which this session is almost finished, and then choose a volunteer who can say that to the rest of the group. When we come back, we won't get through all the groups, we'll just have a few volunteers, so you can see if you can identify how they feel about that. And I'm not expecting it to be true. So if someone sounds really bored or really absolutely thrilled that the session is over, I'm not taking it personally, so it's okay.
Now, if you have a look in the chat, there is a link to the questions. If you could please click on that and have that window open for yourself. When you go into your breakout room, you'll be able to see it, because it won't come up on the screen because you're moving away from the main room. So if you could please click on that link, and then when you get to your breakout room, if you could please turn on your video and your microphone, and just take a little minute to introduce yourself and your organisation to your group members. The groups are being generated randomly, so there may be people from the adult sector, but they may be from any other sector as well. We've got a bit of a representation from different sectors, so just take a little minute to introduce yourselves, and then, as I say, if you haven't already, click on the link and have those questions, and do a little bit of practice for the question, ready to report back, and you'll have about, well, actually, we're probably pushing it a little bit. You'll have about 10 minutes, 10 or 12 minutes. Carly, are you ready to put people in breakout rooms now? Okay, I think we might have excuse me, everybody back in the room. Jacky, did you want to ask for responses?
Okay. So are we talking about the activity or? Yes. Okay. All right. All right, everybody. So hopefully that you had a chance to do the activity there. And we won't get through all the groups, but if we could have a few volunteers to say the sentence that we gave you with the appropriate tone, and we're just going to ask people we're descending into chaos now, so we're just going to ask people to just call out.
Okay, Sally's got her hand up very enthusiastically. You go first.
The session is almost over.
Beautiful. Okay, one of you guesses. How's she feeling about that?
Surprised.
Devastated.
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 Shocked. Devastated.
Devastated. Beautiful. Beautiful.
Oh,
Thank you, Sally. That was very nice. All right, can we have someone else? Mark, you're muted. Okay.
And
The session's almost over.
Okay, she's thinking about a gin and tonic. Okay, what? Okay, how's she feeling?
Excited.
Delighted.
Excited.
Happy.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you, Angela. Okay, we'll have a couple more. Someone else?
Session's almost over.
How's she feeling?
Shocked.
Sad.
Anxious.
Anxious, yeah.
Anxious. Very nice. Thank you, Rachel. All right, let's just have two more. Okay, one more, and then the last one.
Melissa?
The session's almost over.
Angry.
Yeah, you can just stay, Melissa. Yeah, it's fine. Don't run off with that drink now. All right, and last one. Especially if someone has a different.
Yasmin?
The session's almost over.
Sad.
Disappointed.
Are you sad?
Disappointed.
Beautiful.
Poor baby.
Thank you. Yeah, great, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. And really, the session is almost over and it has flown. That was an hour and a half of very good gear. Thank you very much, Jacky.
Yeah, well.
We really appreciate that wealth of activity ideas, which, as we were discussing before, I think are applicable to many levels and to many different contexts. So I think everybody in the room will have taken away more than one thing. So thank you very much, Jacky.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you. And thank you to you, Marg, as well, and also David and Carly, who you can't see, but who it's really good to be able to do these sessions, not have to worry about the technology too much.
Thank you. Well, it all went pretty well. Thank you. So just a couple of things from me. Some of you may have signed up or are thinking of signing up for the ACTA session tomorrow night on, it's the Alison Larkins, the Commonwealth Director General of Migrant Services, speaking on the future of AMEP. Now, we had a 500 cap for that and it is sold out. But the recording will be made available on Thursday, and Carly has put that in the chat. So if you're looking for the link to that, look out for it on Thursday. But that should be a really, really interesting event. I hope to see some of you there. I think that's over to you, David.
Okay, thanks, Margaret. And I just echo your thanks to Jackie. It was a fantastic session. Learned so much from that. Just a couple of things before we go, just to wrap up. So the PowerPoint in PDF form and a recording of the event will be made available to you. And we'll send you an email regarding this tomorrow. So expect that at some point tomorrow. We would also love your feedback. It helps make sure our professional learning is relevant and important and what you need. So if you could please complete our survey on this event, it's in the chat function. I'll post it again in a second. Unlike other events where it opens automatically when you leave, in this setting of Zoom, you need to click on the link in the chat function, or if you would prefer to do it at a later time, we'll also put it in the email and you can do it at some point in the future. We've got one more we've got one more PL event that you might be interested in coming up on Wednesday, the 18th of November, engaging low-level EAL learners in online learning with Luke Treadwell and Tanya. Sorry, one sec. Tanya Rykovska from AIMS. That's from 4 until 5:30 p.m. I've put a link to our event in the chat function, and if you're interested in signing up for that one, you can do so as well. There's a little bit of space left in that event. And that's it from me. I just ask you now, if you would like to express your thanks through Jackie, you can do so in the chat function now. And Jackie, if you want to just have a look at the chat function and see those thanks, that'd be great. Okay, I don't think I've missed anything. Otherwise, we'll see you at the next event. Thank you.